Before starting my conversation with the Nigerian people this hour, please permit me to share briefly the contents of an intriguing exchange between an African and an American on board a flight to Boston, United States. The white American said to the African, "Let's, for a moment, put our skin pigmentations, this black and white crap aside. Tell me, my friend, what is the difference between you and me?" Absolutely none, the American responds to his own question. Scientists in the Human Genome Project have proved that you and I are 99.9% the same. All white, Asian, Latino, and black people on this aircraft are the same. And yet I feel superior, he smiled. Every white person on this plane feels superior to a black person. The white guy who picks up garbage, the homeless white trash on drugs, feels superior to you no matter his status or education. That's not a nice thing to say. The African protested, but the American continued anyway. You see, poor and uneducated Africans are the most hardworking people on earth, said the American. I saw them in Lusaka markets and on the street of Nairobi selling merchandise. I saw them in villages toiling away. I saw women crushing stones to sell, and I wept. I said to myself, where are the African intellectuals? Are the African engineers so insensitive they cannot invent a simple stone crusher or a simple water filter to purify well water for those poor villagers? Or sort out the drainage system to make biogas or reverse purification systems? Oh, are you telling me that after 37 years or more of independence, your university school of engineering has not produced a scientist or an engineer who can make simple small machines for mass usage? And you fly into Boston with me, and all of you Africans in the diaspora are just as lazy and apathetic to their country. You are here calling yourselves graduates, researchers, and scientists, and fast at articulating your credentials once asked. I'm a PhD, I'm a doctor, and so forth and so on. Look, as long as you are dependent on my plane, I shall feel superior, and you, my friend, shall remain inferior. How about that? The African wept. Well, you who is watching me now, are you shocked, moved, or indifferent over this true story? Let me tell you. It is a persistent observation in Scripture that God seldom uses foreigners to liberate a nation or people in captivity. And it has never been with more than one person each time he decides to do so. Look, most times the liberation comes from a capable, concerned, and chosen citizen domiciled in a foreign land, a distance away from the country and people in bondage. Now, this principle or code is firmly active and verifiable in the present-day economic and leadership transformations of Singapore, Israel, Malaysia, Qatar, Russia, Dubai, and some African countries. Now, the reason is simple. Endemically corrupt and massively mismanaged nations and citizens in bondage like ours, yes, cannot be liberated by the same inhabitants or politicians infested with the same evil that holds the country and people bound. It is a proven fact. You check it yourself. Therefore, Nigeria cannot be an exception to this universal code for successful national liberation, freedom, peace, and prosperity. Meaning, Nigerian can never be successfully and swiftly liberated by the crop of recycled, non-value-adding, jobless, and endemically corrupt politicians on parade today in our country, no matter the origin, color, or name of the coalition they hide under. So don't be deceived. Don't be deceived. Be alert. Now, my fellow citizen, my name is Israel Nonyerem Davidson, a senior academic at the Newcastle Business School in the United Kingdom, one of the top 1% business schools in Europe. You see, like Nehemiah of the biblical firm, the social, political, and other events in our country have touched not only my heart, but conscience too. The whole world is in shock over the turn of events in our country. These have far-reaching implications, particularly in conditioning the world's view of Nigerians and the black race in general. Look, the reason for our economic and political states today, or why other races continue to feel superior despite our intellectual and other capabilities, are not too complex to figure out. For example, recently, Associate Professor Chono raised major concerns about the makeup of the Nigerian political arena and leadership. I quote, "In Nigeria, it is easier for dropouts, the incompetent, inexperienced, corrupt, and men of illegitimate and unmerited wealth to secure government appointments and political power." Unquote. Consequently, our politicians are acutely sick, SIC, meaning selfish, incompetent, and corrupt. A cocktail of these three evils delivers nothing but a failed state, a failed state. Now watch this. For their incompetence, insensitivity to the plight of the average Nigerian, and lack of patriotism, they compensate themselves with extremely generous salaries and pension scheme beyond the reach of leaders of free and prosperous economies, like the US, UK, China, Singapore, and Dubai. You remain silent, suffering and smiling. Why? Now let me give you some statistics that might shake you. In a recent statement in the Guardian News, ML Sanusi Lamido drew the attention of the nation to the outrageous salary scale of our legislators. I quote, "A senator receives 36 million naira monthly. At this rate, half the monthly salaries of all the 109 current senators will provide gainful employment to more than 21,000 Nigerians at a monthly salary of 90,000 naira each. A member of the House of Representatives receives 25 million naira monthly. Nigeria has 360 members in the House of Representatives. Half of their salaries can employ more than 48,000 Nigerians who can live comfortably at over 90,000 naira monthly." Unquote. Here's additional information. According to former Governor Peter Obi, I quote, "None of you knows what a governor earns. Quote me anywhere. It is something you can't imagine." Unquote. Look, in the current economic climate, this is not only daylight robbery, but also an unpardonable injustice that must be corrected urgently, with your help. You may have noticed recently how these politicians are wasting millions of naira and other currencies on marrying each other to protect their ruling class. Erection of churches, mosques, and worthless sculptures of foreign heads of state. They even have the audacity to televise these lavish weddings as though royalty or a national event. Though shocked and angry, you remain silent. Why? Other politicians are empowering their youth with goats, tea skills, and wheelbarrows, while leaders of Dubai, Saudi Arabia, and Kuwait are fortifying the future of generations through investment in education, technology, infrastructure, and tourism. Meanwhile, these same Nigerian politicians have their children in Europe and America empowered not with goats, tea skills, or wheelbarrows, but world-class education and proceeds of corruption. Wow, what a country. Now, though concerned, we only express our anger and frustration on social media. And the next day, it is business as usual. Meanwhile, Nigerian civil servants and pensioners remain unpaid for months. Educational institutions and hospitals are massively underfunded. And Nigerians are paying with their lives every day. The insensitivity of Nigerian politicians is beyond reason and boundaries. For example, in a recent press statement, President Obasanjo lamented, I quote, "And it is a sad symptom of insensitivity and callousness that some governors, a day after 73 victims were being buried in a mass grave in Benue State, without condolence, were jubilantly endorsing President Buhari for a second term. The timing was unfortunate," unquote. Yet we remain silent. In the meantime, corruption and lack of accountability continue unabated. For example, according to the federal government, Nigerian agencies comprising Department of Customs, Nigerian Ports Authority, and Federal Inland Revenue Services generated 3.9 trillion naira in 2017, in addition to 10 trillion naira from oil and gas. In the same period, crude oil price increased from $27 to $70 per barrel. Production increased from 800,000 barrels per day to 2 million per day, 150% growth. In 2017, EFCC recovered more than 437 billion naira made up of foreign and local currencies. Now, as at the end of 2016 fiscal year, EFCC had recovered over 400 trillion naira loot. Yet, according to Pastor Tunde Bakri, if you really know the truth, how much we owe as a nation, you will cry for this and future generation. You will cry for yourself. PDP borrowed 6 trillion naira in 16 years. APC has borrowed 11 trillion naira in 3 years. Now, here is the irony. Despite these colossal amounts, borrowed, recovered, or earned, our nation is unable to fund 8.6 trillion naira budget for 2018 without resorting to further borrowing. Yet, the Senate remains impotent. The House of Assembly is silent and sleeping. And the Nigerian people act hypnotized. What a people, what a nation. Do you still wonder why some races continue to feel superior? And their embassies and governments treat Nigerian citizens and government as assholes. Today, the corruption level in our country has degenerated to bizarre tales of rats, monkeys, and snakes, swallowing millions of naira. You have grass-cutting fraud in millions of naira, award of billions of dollar contracts without due process, and warehousing of money in different countries at different locations, all with no deterring penalties. We remain silent and instead prefer to flood foreign embassies with visa applications for access to their homeland. Why? Why? According to the latest World Bank report, Nigeria suffers from persistent acute poverty and now ranks as one of the poorest countries in the world. Our nation is under delivering prosperity to its citizens due to SIC, selfishness, incompetence, and corruption at all levels. At all levels. We all have a share of the blame for these breeds of insensitive, clueless, selfish, corrupt, tribalistic, and unpatriotic politicians. Shame on you. Shame on all of us. Shame on all of you in Nigeria. George Orwell once said, I quote, "Any people that elect corrupt politicians, impostors, thieves, and traitors are not victims but accomplices." Indeed so. Indeed so. Today, you and I are reaping the benefits of our short-sighted electoral decisions and therefore not a victim but an accomplice. There are other voices of concern about the state of our country. I quote, "While we are building the biggest churches, mosques, the Indians, South Africans, Chinese, Europeans, and Americans have taken over our key markets: telecoms, satellite TV, banking, oil and gas, aviation, shopping malls, and hospitality. Ironically, despite our exploits in religions, we are a people with little godliness. It is rare to do business with a Nigerian, be they pastor, deacon, imam, alhaji, or alhaja, without the person laying landmines of bribes and deceptions on your path," unquote. We import petroleum that we have in abundance, rice and beans that our land can yield in commercial quantities, and even toothpick that primary school children can produce with little or no effort. We remain a nation that flouts wealth and wallows in ostentation at a time our children are trooping to Ghana, South Africa, and the UK for university education. And our sick people are running to India and UK for treatment, including Mr. President. On the question of injustice and marginalization across our country, the facts are hidden and account in part for security issues today, particularly in the north. While Southern indigenes have a legitimate claim of marginalization, may I also draw your attention to the silent reality in the north. It is important you're aware of this. Our northern citizens are perhaps the most marginalized and misinformed of all groups in Nigeria by their own elites. Now listen to this. Vanguard 11, March 2014 states, I quote, "Northern politicians and military leaders have been the bane of the North and Nigeria. They have grown fat at the expense of the poor. They deliberately kept the Northerners poor, uneducated, ill-informed, and preferring to feed them from the crumbs falling from their table," unquote. So you see, the youth of the North are indoctrinated to serve the needs of the elite, conditioned with half-baked education that leaves them disadvantaged beyond the federal civil service system, and brainwashed with ideologies that keep them blind of developments, progress, and peace in Saudi Arabia, Dubai, and Kuwait, the heart of Islam. Look, we must liberate the youths of the North to their full potential. If Nigeria is to witness a rebirth of the fortunes and historical landmarks of the region and achieve the status of a united and progressive country. Indeed, we must. Well, on education, let me say this briefly. The quality of our education system generally has deteriorated considerably. I'm sure you know that. In most Nigerian universities, we now have what the human rights lawyer, Mr. Femi Falana, rightly defines as Yahoo professors. Yes, indeed. Here's an example. In a recent world ranking of universities, only one Nigerian institution made it to the first 1,000. Even then, it ranked number 801 position. 801. Now, as Chris Hedges observed, I quote, "We now live in a nation where doctors destroy health. Lawyers and judges destroy justice. Universities destroy knowledge. Governments destroy freedom. The press destroys information. Religion destroys morals. And our banks destroy the economy," unquote. Fellow Nigerian, these hallmarks of corruption, injustice, mediocrity, and marginalization must be addressed sooner rather than later. Well, that's not all. That is not all. As of today, human life is no longer sacred in our country. In fact, the life of a Fulani cow is valued more than the life of citizens by our government and occultism. Indeed so, yes. Now, fellow countrymen and women, we need to take action. We need to work hard. We need to unite. We need to reprogram the mindset of our nation, redefine and communicate what constitutes hard work, merit, quality, world-class performance, and wealth in our country. We need to rehabilitate our country's image, increase national productivity and wealth, and improve standard of living and security for all, North and South. It is important. We must restructure this nation to make it locally and internationally competitive, make it function better, more productive, more united, and economically, technologically, and militarily stronger. Enough is enough. Now, as Charlie Boy put it, our mumu don't do. We must reclaim our country. The handwriting is now on the wall. We must all agree now that a new era of hope is possible. Our time to reclaim this country is now. Now and now. Thank you.